3D modeling and flat patterning is seen as too expensive and too hard for cosplayers, but it's not. Let me show you how to make your flat patterns for free, and we're starting right now. Do you use computer-aided design to create your cosplays? If you do, leave a message below on what you use and maybe send some links to pictures of you in your cosplay. Let's show off a little bit here. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are coming out. Okay, so you are going to need to do three things. You're going to need to download 2 software packages, and then you're going to also have to create an account at Onshape. Now this is free. You can create 3D models for free on Onshape. You just have to come in and create the account. Now, there's a few of you out there that should be able to figure this out. You just don't have an account. You hit sign up, come in and go through all the information, and it won't take very long to get your account up and going. Now, for those of you that are familiar with computer-aided design or played with 3D modelers, this should be somewhat intuitive and you should be able to figure a lot of this stuff out. Hopefully you've used Onshape before, and that will make this super simple for you. But all of this is all achievable by you. It's just going to take a little bit of time if you have not come into it. If you have not come into this before, what I am going to do is I will leave a link below. There's another YouTube channel called Learn Onshape that I run. And there is a quick start Learn Onshape playlist that goes through starting from complete green to making a 3D printed bracelet. So if you want to do that, you can come through this. It's a little bit of a time commitment, but it'll definitely get you polished and ready for making any 3D models. Now, the next thing that we're going to need you to do is you are going to need to download Inkscape. You can Google Inkscape, or you can go to inkscape.org. And again, the links will be below, and download this guy. And install it as well on your computer. You can put this both on a Mac, PC, and I believe it also works on Linux. The last one you're gonna download and install is called Autodesk MeshMixer. Install this guy and we will be off to the races. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come to cad.onshape.com. It will take you to the sign in page. I'm just gonna sign in. And you're going to be presented with something like this. You're not going to have a lot of these files. These are ones that I created. It's going to be fairly blank, and it's also going to have some instruction stuff for you, but let's not worry about that. What I want to do is sort of rough and dirty and really quick, just get you moving and creating stuff. So first thing that we need to do is we need to create a document. And let's call this Maker Hacks Cosplay. And if you guys want to have access to this file, I will send you the link for it so that you can go in and play with it and deconstruct it on your own time. You'll see that link below. So now we've come into this user interface. First thing you're going to notice is if you press the left button, you'll be able to select things. If you press and hold the right mouse button, you will notice that you can rotate and move everything. Just kind of play around with that. And the zoom button is the roller mouse back and forth. If you press and hold the roller button, you'll notice that you can pan around. So that is all just sort of like some really quick how to move around things. But what we're going to do is, one thing I've found in cosplay is that a majority of all the patterns are based off of a cone. If you take a look at a Vambrace, it is a cone. If you look at a shin guard, it is a cone. And if you look at, say, something like Boset's crown, again, all of these are cones, including the horns. The horns are cones. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a base cone. I'm going to show you how to make a base cone. And then from there, in future videos, I am going to show you how to make a lot more detail, ornate things into it, be able to give it some twisty horn-like bends and that sort of thing. But let's just start with the basics. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the top plane and we're going to sketch, and we want to make a circle. Now we want the circle to be, let's say if we're going to make a Vambrace, we will need something with a diameter to go around our wrist, and I'm thinking that is somewhere between 3 and 4 inches. So what I am going to do really quickly here is I'm going to create a circle. To create a circle, you come up to the circle icon. I'm going to mouse over top of the origin so that it highlights, and then I'm going to drag this out. At this point, you need to dimension it. So we're going to go to dimension. One thing that you will notice is that if you mouse over something and hold it there for a minute, it will give you a tool tip on what it does, how to work with it, and also a shortcut key, in this case, a D. And we are going to say that that is 3.5 inches. Now, when we do a cone, you need to have a split down the cone for it to unfold. Otherwise, you've got a cone and the computer's not going to be able to unfold it. So what we need to do is I'm going to just orient this view. But keep in mind up in here, you can see the view orientation. I'm just going to click on top, but you can also go to different views really quickly with this. So that being off to the side, we need to create a line, and I want to make them construction lines. First one I'm going to do is going to be straight up the center, right to the edge of the circle. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here, and you'll notice when I come off vertically to the line, there's a yellow sort of highlight that happens to the line, and it's letting me know that this is being constrained to a horizontal plane. So I'm just going to click there, and I'm also going to come down here and click there. So the reason why I did the horizontal plane is that I need that line and that line to intersect the circle as best I can get that to happen. Now the next thing is I want, in this case for a Vambrace, a lot of them are closed at the very back. They have like a little bit of a gap. So let's just assume that we have a gap of, I don't know, let's say 1/4 inch. So we'll put in 0.25. And there we have that all set up. Now that still hasn't given us a gap now, has it? So what we need to do is we need to hit trim and knock that little edge off of there. So now we've got the gap on a 0.25 and we should be good right there. So now that we have the bottom part of the cone, we've got that set up, we are going to need to make the next part of the cone. That is going to require another sketch at a different altitude than the top plane offers. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the top plane, and we're going to hit plane function up at the top, and we're just going to do an offset. And a Vambrace, I am guessing here, is going to be probably 9 inches or so. So let's just go for 9. And that gives me a plane that is that far up. Now, you can see that things are starting to get a little confusing as far as being able to see everything with all these extra planes. So I don't want to see the front plane. So I can click on the front plane, right click on it and say hide the front plane. Alternately, let's say for the right plane, I don't want to see it. I can mouse over here and you'll see a little eyeball. Click the eyeball, and you'll notice that it disappears. So let's go to the top plane. We're going to create another sketch. I am going to hit the N key on my keyboard. Here's a trick, and it will take you normal to the sketch that you're currently working on. So N is normal to the sketch that you're working on. Super handy little trick. So the next one is we're going to do a center point circle. And the next one is once you come up to your forearm, we're looking at something that's probably going to be closer to 6-7 inches. So let's just say 7 inches here. And again, we are going to create a line, and we're going to use construction lines. Now you'll notice one thing is that these lines, say this line here, if I'm going vertical and I click on there, it turns black. If I take this line here and I drop it somewhere, it's blue, and this line here, it's blue. What does blue mean? Blue means it's not fully constrained. That means that I can grab onto something and move it around. And that can be bad sometimes. Sometimes if you're just roughing things out and you just need things to get started, this isn't necessarily all that bad. But now there's two things that we can do, is that to create all this and make it black again is we can click on that line, and we need to do something like make it horizontal. So you'll notice that up in here, there's a bunch of constraining functions that you can use for your sketches. And this guy here, we kind of have a choice. And the choice is do we want to line it up with this line here and make the gap a little wider at the top, or do we want a 1/4 inch as well, or 1/4 inch again? I think in this case, I want to make sure that it's a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to hit D on the keyboard. Again, you could have hit the dimension, come up here, and we'll do 0.25 again. You'll notice that lines don't line up, but that's okay. Once we get this all done, everything's good. Now, we hit cut, and we split that guy out. So now we have 2 circles that we can use for this cone. I'm going to hide these 2 planes. Whoops, I hid the sketches. That was pretty silly of me. I'm going to hide that plane, and I'm going to hide that plane. So now we have those two cones, and we need to do something in between them to make it a 3D model. That is called a loft. So let's hit loft. Now, because these aren't closed off sections, remember how we'd made that cut so it's no longer closed off? It won't allow us to do a solid here. So what we actually want to do is we want to make a surface. So I'm going to click on that, and it creates the base of the cone. Now, what we're going to cover here in a little bit is how to make it a little more ornate. One thing that you'll notice is that if you make this cone and you try to put your hand into it, if that's what you're looking for, something that's very linear along here, this is great. But if you want something that bulges out for a forearm, say like Thanos's gauntlet, it's got a bit of a bulge. So we can look at the start condition, and we can say to make it normal to profile, and you notice that it kind of bulged it out a little bit here. So we can do that if we need to. I'm just going to create that. Just remember, you don't have to play with these. And the end profile you can do as well. So if we made it normal to profile, we could make it so that it looks more like a cup. And you can start playing with this. The numbers here, if we take that 1 and we make it a 2, you'll notice that it pushes it down a little bit. I usually find that the defaults are really good as far as what I generally want to have. So that would make for a very good forearm Vambrace. We've got that. Let's just hide these two sketches. Now pat yourself on the back. You have just made your first 3D model for cosplay. One thing I like to do here is I come into this tab, is I'll right click on it and I will rename it. And in this case, we'll call it Vambrace, so we know what we have. And the other thing that you can do too is you can come in and start naming some of these things. This surface here, we can call it Vambrace surface. I'm really hoping I'm spelling this right. I am Vambrace. Yes, I am. Luckily. Doesn't happen that often. I like running with numbers, not words. So there we go. We've got that. So now what? We've got this 3D model in here, and how do I make a flat pattern off of it? Now this is where you get the MeshMixer, and you also get into the Inkscape or Illustrator to create the flat pattern that you need. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to right click on this tab, and we want to export, and you want to make it a format called STL. That is the format that you're going to want to use. Binary is fine, millimeters is fine, resolution. A lot of the defaults are generally okay for this. So we're just going to say okay. And it's downloading Vambrace STL. Now we're done with the browser here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit the Windows key and open up MeshMixer. And it opened up on my other screen. So let's bring it over here and enlarge it. So first thing we need to do is we need to import that Vambrace. Let's grab that guy and bring him in here. Now there's a few things that you can do here. One is that you can see that the surface is inside out, and that's why you kind of have this weird texture on the outside. At least that's something that you'll notice if you haven't played with this before, that isn't how it always is. We're not going to go into a lot of this. We're just doing the rough and dirty how to create a flat pattern. So now that we have this guy in here and it's imported, we're going to hit the edit and unwrap. And sometimes if your computer's slower, it's going to take a minute or two to figure things out. And you'll notice that it has unwrapped a flat pattern here. Now, why is it red in this area? That is telling you that that is the strain area. Now, sometimes what I do with this picture here is I either memorize it, commit it to memory, or I end up just taking a screen capture of this, because that shows me that if I need to bulge things out with a little bit of heat from a heat gun, that red area is exactly where you need to apply the heat. So it can come in super handy, because you don't necessarily have to heat up this whole outside edge. You should be fine. You just need to apply heat almost in a linear pattern right through the center before you roll this up and manufacture it. But now we've had all this done and the flat pattern is created, we're going to hit accept, and you'll notice that it has created an object browser, and there is the unwrap section, which is separate. Next thing I'd like to do, and you don't have to do this, is I like to just come up here, hit edit, transform, and pull this guy away from its original piece. And we'll hit accept. So now it has the same rules as far as you press and hold the right mouse button and you can rotate around and stuff. So now we've got this flat pattern, but this is still not something that we can print out. Well, what you do is you make sure that it is selected in this case here, and we go to File, Export SVG. You want to do the paths and the group color and stuff. Just leave all that as the default. We're going to hit Export, and we're going to call this Vambrace. And we're going to save it to our desktop where we know it will be. And we are done now with the MeshMixer. Now, MeshMixer, sometimes it has problems flattening things. We'll cover that in some of the future episodes. But if you're doing some basic shapes and just getting started, this is going to work for you. If it doesn't, leave a question below or a comment below, and let's help each other out. So carrying on, what we are going to do is I'm going to hit the Windows button again, and I'm going to open up Inkscape. Now I have Illustrator and everything, but Inkscape is free, and most cosplayers, including myself, I'm lucky enough to have the software, but not everybody does. It can be super expensive. Inkscape is free. Again, great reason to use it. We're going to open up that file that we just made, that Vambrace. So let's scroll down through here, and there's the Vambrace SVG, and we are going to open it up. So now you can see that it is larger than a 8.5 by 11 paper, so that's fine. Press and hold Control and use your roller mouse, and you can roll out, and you can see the size of the actual flat pattern. So now we have this, and we're still not sure about the size of this. So one thing that we've got to make sure is that we're going to come in here on File, Document Properties, and we're going to start adjusting a few things here. Now you'll see that display units is pixels. That might not necessarily be what you want. You might want millimeters or inches. Let's go to inches. Let's go to inches here. And now that we have something that it's showing me that it's 10 inches wide, that seems pretty reasonable for the size of this. So we just got to make sure that the scale is correct. If you have a scaling issue, sometimes you have to come in here and play with this. The scale here is 96. That means that there's 96 dots per inch. And that is how this was originally created. So that kind of just gives us an idea of what's going on. Anyway, we can go on yap about scaling all we want. It's still not going to get us to the print out the pattern stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this somewhere close to where I want things to be. We're going to say make that 16 inches wide, which should work. And let's say 10 inches tall. Oh, let's just go to 16. That's too much. 13 should work. So now we've got a sheet of paper where we got 16 by 13 and the size of everything. We're going to close down the document properties, and now we have this. This is sort of like one last stage, and I know we've been hopping from one software package to the next, but you'll notice that I can teach this in, say, half an hour, but when you start doing this and working the workflow, it usually takes you like 5 minutes to create a flat pattern, which is infinitely faster than trying to create a pattern just based off of your own arm. So anyway, carrying on, we are going to do File, and we are going to do Save As, and we want to save it as a PDF. We're going to call it the Vambrace, put it on the desktop, and we're going to hit Save. And we'll just go for all the defaults. So last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the desktop, and we're going to look for the Vambrace. We're going to double click on it. I have Adobe Acrobat Reader and recommend that you get it. And part of the reason why is that it plays nice with a lot of printers. And in this case, I can come here, I can hit print. And what you'll see here is that it will start tiling things. So it lets me know that I'll need 4 sheets of paper, and it will give me all the guide marks that I need to have everything work properly. And I can make the Vambrace based off of that. And I can hit print, get those 4 sheets, tape them together, place them on the foam, and start manufacturing. There you go. How to create a free, simple, and fast flat pattern for cosplay for a Vambrace or for a crown. And we are going to be covering some more detailed things on this and how to create more complex flat patterns. So stay tuned. And to stay tuned, you need to hit subscribe and the bell icon, and you'll be notified when new videos are coming out. If you want access to this file, please look at the links below and I will give that to you so that you can go in and get that. Hopefully that's helped you out. Again, don't forget to leave a comment below if it has and how you can use this and if there's anything I can help you out with. I'll talk to you guys in a little bit.